Warning! Some of these games contain imagery of bloody violence and address dark themes. If you're sensitive to either of those, I recommend to skip some parts. Pulling off a good plot twist is a hard thing to do. In my opinion, a good twist lays out the pieces beforehand and eventually shows an unexpected connection between these pieces. Things that didn't make sense are suddenly fully explained. Things you thought you knew are suddenly put into a different perspective, changing the way you look at a plot element or the actions of a character. I love it when a story can take me by surprise in this way. So therefore, I'd like to look at the 10 times video games totally blew my mind with a plot twist. As you can imagine, this video is drenched in spoilers, so before I might ruin a game you were just about to play, I'll first name the title of the game before I'll talk about the twist in detail. You've been warned! Also, this is an opinion-based list and these are only games I have played. If a game isn't on this list, it's either because I haven't played it or I didn't feel the same way about it. Anyway, let's start the list. Number 10. Until Dawn. In case you're not familiar, it's a horror game about a group of people who spent the weekend in a cabin in the forest, only to find themselves being stalked by a psychopath who's keen on playing sick games with them. Besides the psycho, there appear to be ghosts, an abandoned mine where strange creatures roam around, and so on. While it all sounds cliche, it are the characters and the influence you have on the story that keeps it entertaining. At a certain point, you need to choose between the lives of the characters Ashley and Josh. I chose to save Ashley, followed by Josh getting a brutal, bloody death. And that's just the beginning. Later in the game, there's another scene of characters being trapped, awaiting a bloody death. Only this time the lights go on and the psycho reveals himself.
You've heard of blanks before? I mean, really?
Yes, it turns out that Josh planned it all. The ghosts, the psycho stuff, the notes about a killer, even his own death, all a setup by Josh. Except for the monsters in the woods. Those turn out to be mythical creatures called Wendigos, which I won't explain for now. The reason this twist worked so well on me was because early on in the game you can pick which one is your least favorite character. I picked Josh because I got some sort of Jersey Shore douchebag vibe from him. So when he showed up in this scene, I was convinced it was because I picked him as my least favorite character. Naturally, I didn't choose to save him when the moment came to pick one, adding fuel to the fire of illusion. Maybe if I hadn't picked him as my least favorite character, or I chose to save him instead of Ashley, I would have seen this plot twist coming. But I walked right down the path the creators had laid out for me. Also, Josh really didn't like that I picked Ashley over him.
Oh, I never imagined in my wildest dreams that you liked me.
Stop.
You know what that sound is? It's the sound of never kissing Ashley, you pussy!
Stop!
Number 9. Silent Hill 2. In Silent Hill 2, James gets a letter from his wife, who passed away a while ago, telling him to meet her in the ghost town of Silent Hill. Confused as to who sent this letter, or what it could possibly mean, he heads down there to search for answers. As you explore more of Silent Hill, you learn that James and his wife were a happy couple, until she got terribly ill, and things got so bad that she didn't have a lot of time left to live anymore. This made me think, is James sent to the town in order to solve undiscussed issues? Like, maybe they were in a heavy fight before she passed away, and this is her way of reaching out to him? But when you're close to the ending and discover what actually happened, the reality of the situation turns out much more sinister because James's wife died because he murdered her. In other words, you were playing for a murderer this entire time, thinking it was just an innocent, grieving man. James couldn't handle seeing his beloved wife slowly dying, so he thought killing her straight away might ease the pain.
The truth is, part of me hated you for taking away my life.
You killed me, and you're suffering for it.
One of the most clever "you were the bad guy all along" twists I've seen in recent years, and it's from a PlayStation 2 game, which only shows just how timeless games can really be. Number 8. The Kingdom Hearts series. Kingdom Hearts is infamous for its overly complicated storyline. To be honest, I don't really care for most of these twists and turns, but there is one continuing plotline I actually ended up loving. Put yourself in the shoes of a kid back in the year 2002. You play Kingdom Hearts shortly after its release, and you absolutely love it. In Kingdom Hearts, there are creatures called Heartless, monsters who get created from the darkness of people's hearts. The stronger the evil in their heart, the stronger the Heartless. The final boss is the Heartless of a mad scientist called Ansem, who is obsessed with darkness and wanted to cover the world in it. Fine, so it's basically a simple good versus evil story, light versus darkness. You beat him, story ends, done. Fast forward 3 years to Kingdom Hearts 2. Here, you find out that the guy you fought wasn't Ansem's Heartless, but a Heartless of his apprentice. You also learn that for each Heartless created, a different type of creature gets created called a Nobody. Simple version, Xehanort is the real villain of the game. He has 2 powerful forms of himself. You defeat them, happy ending to the series, yada yada yada, done. Or so you think. Fast forward another couple of years later and you find out that the man you saw a portrait of wasn't the real Xehanort. It was a young warrior who got merely possessed by him. The actual Xehanort is an old man who died years prior to the events of Kingdom Hearts 1, and he lives on through the body of the young warrior. Okay, fine, so that's his backstory. But he's defeated and that about wraps up the whole thing, right? Fast forward yet some more years, and you find out that through a time-traveling plot and other reasons I don't really understand, the real Xehanort manages to show up in the current timeline. Now, in Kingdom Hearts 3, you finally fight the main villain behind it all, a whopping 16 years after the release of the original Kingdom Hearts. Long story short, the villains you were fighting weren't the real Xehanort. I can't say these twists are mind-blowing in that they don't foreshadow anything. I mean, it feels like they made up the story as they went along, rather than plotting these twists out. But there are 2 things these twists do outstandingly well. First of all, they make sense with the established logic. While it doesn't completely flip the table, it changes my view enough to look at these old events from a different perspective. Second, these story elements took literally years and years to tell. Because of that, I got an increasingly bigger desire to fight against the real culprit. Each time I thought I won, it turned out the real culprit was 1 step ahead of me, always out of reach. So when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, and you finally stood face to face with that bastard who's behind all this evil you had to deal with in the franchise for years, it was really damn satisfying. While the fight itself was disappointingly easy, it was the fight where I felt the strongest drive to win. This was all due to these years of twists and turns.
Xemnas, there's more to a heart than just anger or hate. It's full of all kinds of feelings. Don't you remember?
Unfortunately, I don't.
Number 7. Heavy Rain. Throughout the game, you're chasing a murderer called the Origami Killer, who kidnaps children and drowns them in rainwater. You control 4 characters that each are involved in the case. With each of these characters, you come across a ton of suspects, false leads, evidence to analyze, or other problems to solve. So, who of all the suspects you encounter could be the real killer? This you find out in an important scene where the private investigator suddenly starts to burn all the evidence he collected. What? Why would he burn the evidence? Why would... Wait a minute. You were controlling the Origami Killer this whole time! I was around 16 when I played this game, and at the time I had never seen a twist like this. There wasn't a single moment I even remotely expected him to be the killer. He was a very likable character, so it was kinda hard to accept him as the villain. When replaying this game, you know just how cruel he's being to the parents of his previous victims, knowing he is the Origami Killer. If anything, it makes me hate him more as a villain, in a good way, but this also made him a more interesting character. You understand what drove him to do this, and when you see the things that happen between all the parents and the children in this game, it only adds fuel to his fire. What else can I say? A solid twist that provided a nice start of the interactive drama genre.
I've been looking for a long time, Ethan. Looking for a father that would be able to do what mine could not do. Sacrifice himself in order to save his son.
Number 6. Life is Strange. Life is Strange is an immaculately written game about a girl named Max, who is studying photography and also gains the ability to control time, like all girls do.
I know I'm not dreaming this.
You all know, the
It's
photo
real.
portrait has been popular
I can
since
tell.
the early 1800s. Your generation
So I
was the
can go
first
back
to
in
use
time.
images for selfie expression.
To summarize what happens, she meets up with an old friend called Chloe and they rekindle their friendship. As they bond, there are all kinds of moral choices and little puzzles that require a clever use of the time reverse ability. But throughout all of this, there is one dark thing nagging in the back of your brain: the Prescott family. The Prescott's son is a mentally unstable asshole capable of murder. Throughout the game, you learn that their family is corrupt, they're involved in drug dealing, and they might even have something to do with the disappearance of a girl that Chloe deeply cares for. Chloe and Max take it upon themselves to confront the Prescott son about this. But when they confront him, this happens.
Chloe! Look out!
What the fuck?
Jefferson? What? How? Yes, that's what I'm gonna call it, because that's all I could yell when I first saw it. Talking about an unexpected turn of events. Jefferson was the last person I expected to be involved somehow. This twist actually made more sense when replaying the game, when I started to pay closer attention to what he says and does. A whodunit twist done right, because I didn't realize it was the whodunit scenario in the first place. Number 5. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Hellblade, when you look at the basic storyline, does have a simple save the princess plot. But damn, this is the best execution of this cliché I've ever seen. Senua goes to the realm of the dead to save the man she loves. The game does an outstandingly good job at making you understand how terrible her life was and what a positive influence this man had. I genuinely wanted her to save him very badly. This makes it all the more tragic that, in the Save the Princess plot, where I wanted the main character to succeed the most, it was all for nothing.
If you're alive, and there's no Thomas, then you never took him from me, did you? And I can't save Dorian.
It's not that she fails to rescue him by losing a fight or something like that. Near the end of her journey, she merely discovers that her mission was futile to begin with. There was never a way to save the man she loved. Like this game wasn't depressing enough. Just when you thought she was going to catch a break, reality comes sailing in and stabs her with the hugest of knives. But there's also one very strong, crucial thing she gains out of this journey. She accepts and is able to control the darkness. In the beginning of her journey, she was reliant on the man to bring light to her world, but now she's able to accept being in the dark and eventually find the sun on her own, which is a powerful moral and a perfect way to end the experience.
Please don't go, I want you to stay, I'm begging you please.
Number 4. A Way Out. This one barely missed my top 10 favorite games of 2018 video. It's a solid co-op experience about Vincent and Leo, two prisoners who escape in order to have their revenge on a common enemy. The story is very engaging with well-written characters, some effective emotional moments, and a surprising amount of spectacular action. Throughout the game, you're either solving puzzle-like scenarios together, fighting together, or just goofing around. This makes A Way Out a great experience to play with a friend. But since this game is featured on this list, you can imagine something will drastically go south. After you've beaten the common enemy, just as you're about to go your separate ways, Vincent reveals he isn't who Leo thought he was.
Here you go. Good job, Vincent.
I'm sorry, Leo.
Vincent is an undercover cop. Everything he did was just a setup to make Leo take him to their common enemy. Now the co-op game suddenly turns into a versus game, as Leo is out on the run and Vincent chases him. The game even has 2 different endings, depending on who wins during the last level. A good twist that wasn't just turn the entire plot upside down, but flip the entire gameplay as well. Therefore, it's well deserved for the number 4 spot, and it's one of the better twists of the past few years. Number 3. Spec Ops: The Line. Spec Ops feels like some sort of Michael Bay video game. For the most part, it's an over-the-top, mediocre third-person shooter about a group of tough soldiers who are on a mission to discover whether people have survived a sandstorm. As soon as you enter the country where the survivors should be, you get in all sorts of trouble and it becomes a matter of fighting for your life. As you're blazing through enemies, there's this moment when you use a nuke to blow up an enemy base, just so you can safely travel through it. But when you travel to the remains of the base, you make a shocking discovery.
Are those civilians? Where'd they come from? There's no camp here.
They took them from the nest.
That hotel back at the storm wall? No, those can't be the civvies that got kidnapped. It's not possible.
It is at this point you start to question just how righteous the actions of the characters really are. What started as a simple check for survivors mission changed into a mass murder of innocent people over time. It's then you realize you're the cause of all the misery. And piling it on, it turns out the person who supposedly survived is long dead, and a large part of the things you saw were hallucinations made up by the main character in order to justify his actions, because he simply couldn't accept the reality of what he did. There's even a strong possibility the main character died in the plane crash at the opening of the game, and the scenes after that are actually him being in hell, where he's confronted with all the terrible things he has done. This is open to interpretation, but I heard this is what the creators originally intended and it adds up with the other content of the game. I would almost say such a clever plot twist is wasted on a mediocre shooter game, but then again, maybe that's the point. Gamers are so used to war shooters where you're portrayed as the war hero, fighting the evil terrorist without ever questioning their side of the story. This game gives you a false sense of security, like it's just one of many military shooters, only to brutally smack the harsh truth of your actions in your face. It made a seemingly forgettable game into a surprisingly memorable one, and that is what makes it stand out from others in this genre.
The truth, Walker, is that you're here because you wanted to feel like something you're not, a hero.
Number 2. Doki Doki Literature Club. This is hands down one of the most shocking games I've played in the past few years. It made such a big impact, I was completely stunned. Even a couple of days after playing the game, it was still stuck in my head. It's a free-to-play visual novel game that takes about 5 hours to complete. The first 2 hours are mostly colorful, upbeat conversations with cute girls you can start a relationship with. Typical visual novel stuff, I guess. But there's a strong underlying uneasy feeling, an ominous feeling that something will go terribly wrong. The game straight up starts with the message that it's not suitable for people under 13 or people who can't handle disturbing content. This is the first alarming sign the game may not be as innocent as it seems. And after 2 hours, boy, this game takes a turn for the worse. Damn, this game does not mess around. For as shocking and disturbing as it is, it's not something that came entirely out of nowhere. The game makes it very clear all of these girls suffer from serious mental health issues, and the game told you something really disturbing would happen. I didn't expect this particular event, and most certainly not in this much gruesome detail, but I did expect some sort of death to happen. What I didn't expect, and the reason why this game is on number 2, is every damn thing that happens afterwards! You'd expect that the story continues after the death of the girl, like a funeral or possibly preventing something similar to happen to the other girls. But no, the game just straight up ends and sends you back to the main menu. Except this time, the girl who died is completely glitched out. When you try to load the game, the save data is corrupt. When you start a new game, the story seems to be different because the girl who died is suddenly written out of the plot. But that's not where the strangeness ends. The other girls are acting eerily weird, sometimes aggressive or just plain insane. Glitches, fourth wall breaks, and unpredictable dark imagery appear on a regular basis. But it's not just trippy for the sake of being trippy. One of the characters is called Monica, and she seems to be on the front line whenever things seems to go out of hand. This makes her rather suspicious, though she seems to stay on the background for a large part of the game. But after things get completely out of hand near the end, the game reveals the reason behind all these events. Namely, Monica is self-aware and wants to escape. Monica knows that she is a character in a video game, and she is forced to undergo the same loop of events for all of eternity. Some sort of Groundhog Day scenario. She doesn't make choices of her own, and there's nowhere to go, because she's designed to be this side character in a game she doesn't want to be in. However, you, the player, are the only opportunity she has to break out of the loop she's trapped in. This creates an unsettling affection she has for you. Not the character you're playing, but you, the player. Thus, she tries her hardest to manipulate the entire game, adjusting the emotions of the other girls in order to make you dislike them, hoping you would pick her over the rest. Unbeknownst to her, adjusting the personality of the other girls made them go completely insane. Messing with the coding is also why the game breaks the fourth wall and glitches out on numerous occasions. For how horrible this all is, I still felt some sort of sympathy towards her. I genuinely wanted her to be happy in the end, which is an incredible accomplishment given the things she has done. I can't think of any video game story like this. This makes Doki Doki Literature Club one of the most impactful game of my recent memory.
Every day I imagine a future where I can be with you.
And the number one insane plot twist in video games comes from Phoenix Wright. Which one, you ask? All of them! This may be a really cheap number one after Doki Doki or Spec Ops, but hey, this is my list, I can do whatever I want. I don't even care it isn't a specific twist, because Phoenix Wright is the absolute king of plot twists in gaming. There's no way I can stick to just one game or one twist. I could make a top 10 plot twist on this franchise alone, maybe 20 or more. There's a reason the word turnabout is in the title of every single episode of every single game, because there are a shit ton of twists in these games. The twists vary between small ones that are about a detail regarding one event, bigger ones that took an entire case to build up to even mind-blowing ones that fooled you throughout the entire game. Whether it was the culprit being a completely different person you thought it was, the cause of death was completely different, or other crucial facts about the case you got wrong this entire time. How about the time it turned out somebody important was actually being spirit channeled to be framed for murder? Or when a side character you really liked was actually a spy this whole time? From strange mysteries like time traveling, mystical monsters, channeling the dead, asking whether magic exists, to all the other strange things this series tackles, I think every plot twist cliché imaginable has been done in one way or another throughout the series, but they're almost always done in a way that works really well. Just in case you haven't noticed, I really love this franchise for its characters, puzzles, art style, and music, but also for their sweet, insane plot twist that I can't seem to get enough of. Phoenix Wright, the king of plot twists in gaming. So, those were my top 10 insane plot twists in video games. What twists surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.